Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook?
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Fleet Geeks podcast. My name's Pete Rushmore and I'm your host, and I'm delighted that you're joining me today. Today I'm asking, what are the key skills of a transport manager? And I've come up with 8 key suggestions. And this is useful for those of you that are about to go on a training course to become a transport manager, or maybe you're already qualified and looking to upskill or just make sure that you've got the right sort of areas. And this helps you think about the core attributes needed to be competent, and also to focus yourself on where your CPD could go, because sometimes we have a tendency to focus on the things we're best at rather than the things that we're poorest at. So I thought I'd come up with 8 suggestions of what a great transport manager looks like, because the thing is, it's like being a conductor of an orchestra. You need to make sure everything runs in harmony. You need to make sure that the operation is all coherent and working together. So the first thing is what you go and do your training for, okay? Legal and regulatory knowledge, okay? These are the key things that I find that people focus on. It's what's covered in the Transport Manager CPC qualification, and it's also what people most look to do their CPD on. Okay, so I think it's a really important first step, really important. But what we need to remember is, for transport managers, is the CPC is the base level qualification, and actually there's lots of development opportunity that we need to look at to move forward. So the second area, the second skill set, I think, is around planning and organisation skills. Okay, so that might be planning routes, planning shifts, allocation of people, scheduling maintenance, making sure that service levels are maintained. Planning and organizational skills are really important, but I think it's also around making sure that we have a strategy and strategic thinking around the way we plan and organize the work we do from a longer term perspective. So that's the second one. The third, I think, is around communication. Top tier transport managers are brilliant communicators, excellent translators at working in between. So the transport management role is very much a 360-degree management role, where you're taking care of the owners or the fleet director or the ops director, whoever it is that you work for that's responsible at board level for the fleet operations. You're communicating effectively with them. And then you also need to be able to communicate with your ops team, with your drivers directly as well. So clear communication builds trust and helps avoid cross wires, conflicts, those kinds of things. Now, as transport managers, how often do you work on developing your communication skills? I think that's absolutely vital as a leader, as a transport manager, making sure that you really understand how to effectively influence and communicate with people. So maybe something to think about for your CPD. Obviously, if communication is something you're interested in, I'm more than happy to have a conversation around those areas. So the third, getting my fingers all muddled up. The fourth area is around problem solving under pressure. When your vehicle breaks down at 7 a.m. on a Monday, you need to be able to keep calm, ask questions, carry on, make sure that everything moves again as quickly as possible. Stressing out, there's an old saying about, if you're not sure who the leader is in a room, you want to see a state of crisis and who's the calmest person in the room. Problem solving under pressure is really important, and making sure we keep our cool, stay relaxed, and make sure that we push into action as quickly as possible is really important. So problem solving under pressure is really important. We need to be able to be good at that. The fifth area, data and systems literacy. I've come across many transport managers who are terrible with computers and tech. And I'm really sorry to say this, but I think if it's one of your challenge areas, I think it's really important you get to grips with it and develop those skills. Everything is moving towards telematics, online systems, digital systems, making sure we can get insights from dashboards, new software systems. They drive smarter decisions. And I think as a transport manager, you need to fully utilize the literacy around data and systems. So if you're weak on computers, if you're weak with data, if you're weak with systems, I really urge you to focus on developing those areas, because I think it's an absolutely vital part of being a fantastic transport manager, both now and over the next 4 to 5 years and onwards.
Hello, it's Shani from Flagship Partners. We are really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. If you need expert advice or training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We are really excited to announce the launch of our Transport Manager Academy. With expert development for fleet leaders, we offer fully accredited initial Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher, and operator license awareness training, as well as mentoring, support, and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is to develop elite fleet professionals.
Really important. Okay, so yeah, I think, like I say, really important. So how many am I on now? I've lost already. Legal and regulatory compliance, let's have a recap. Planning and organisational skills, that's 2. Communications, 3. Problem solving under pressures, 4. Data and systems is number 5. So the 6th area, I think, is around people leadership. I talk a lot about leadership, and I think when you're a transport manager, you're not just running vehicles. You're not just looking after regulatory and legal compliance. People leadership is really important, whether it's your ops team, whether it's your technicians, whether it's your drivers, whether it's your subcontractors, the partners that you work with that maintain the vehicles. A great TM knows how to motivate people, support people, discipline people when needed, and can build a culture of safety and performance within their team. I think it's absolutely vital to understand those skills. I've got a book suggestion for you. Obviously, there's an author called Pete Rushmer who's written a book called The Performance Trifecta. If you want to understand more about leadership, it's a fantastic book. Just drop me a line, give me a shout, and I can arrange to get you a copy. Okay, but that is the 6th area. I think people leadership is really important. The 7th is around attention to detail. Okay, so I often talk about disc profiling and that kind of stuff. The detail element is that blue profile, that detailed blue profile where people are really task focused and they're really conscious of doing things right. Attention to detail is important. Missing a PMI, missing a driver CPC expiry, spotting a tacho error, all of this can mean impact on your OCRS or even worse. So the best transport managers that I've come across are detail obsessed. Like any mechanic who can spot an issue a mile off, they can hear the squeak, they can hear an issue, they've spotted it a mile off. You need that attention to detail. I used to work for a boss who had a built-in shit detector who was able to just sniff whatever the issue was going to be. He could just spot it a mile off. And that comes from having that attention to detail and really knowing your subject matter. So I think it's really important to be in the detail. And the 8th and final one, which I think is, again, really important, and I think is often overlooked by transport managers, but that's commercial awareness. As a transport manager, if you lack commercial awareness, you're really going to frustrate your bosses and your leadership. Commercially astute and aware transport manager gets the bigger picture. They understand efficiency, understand the impact of fuel, downtime, customer service, and all of these things impact the bottom line of the operation. We need to be able to speak the language of profit, not just compliance. Ultimately, your transport operation may not need to be profitable, but it might also need to be profitable. It depends on your operation. But regardless of whether it's a profit center or regardless of whether it's a cost base, ultimately we need to control costs. We need to understand efficiency. We need to optimize performance. We need to really understand and be commercially aware. And I think that is a good development opportunity. So there's 8 areas there for potential CPD for transport managers. And I think that when you look at developing your competency frameworks, I really do think I always encourage through the leadership development training a balanced scorecard. Okay, because the thing is we tend to focus on the most important stuff. So for example, if you're a business owner, you tend to focus on the finances, right? Because the money, the profit, those kinds of things, you fixate on one area. But what that means is actually you misallow the people issue, or you focus on productivity and profit over other areas of performance. And the same way with transport managers, one of the challenges I pick up is many transport managers absolutely fixate on the compliance side of stuff, the legal and regulatory knowledge, and think that's all that matters. But actually, we need to be balanced. We need to develop those other areas. So as part of listening to this podcast, I just implore you really, what are you doing to develop those other areas? And I'll just run through them again. The 8 areas: legal and regulatory compliance, planning and organizational skills, communication, problem solving under pressure, data and systems literacy, people leadership, attention to detail, and commercial awareness. So I think the 8 key attributes that we need to develop as transport managers. And I think that if you can get a balanced scorecard approach to those areas, you might be, score each area out of 10. Where are you? And that is going to give you good focus areas to start to round yourself and develop yourself as a transport manager. I hope that's been useful, and I look forward to seeing you on a future podcast. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.